The year is 1917. We're in a small mining town deep in the Arizona desert. Copper is king, the mines are booming, and the world is at war. But here's the thing. This town, Bisbee, is about to disappear. Not slowly, not over time, but overnight. This was not because of some natural disaster or enemy attack. No, this was something far darker, something man-made, something sinister. Now I know what you're thinking. How does an entire town just vanish? Well, it starts with a strike. Hardworking miners, many of them immigrants, are standing up to powerful mining companies, demanding fair pay and safer conditions. But what happens next? It's not just a crackdown. It's not just violence. It's something so extreme, so brutal, that it feels like something straight out of a dystopian movie. Over 1,200 people rounded up at gunpoint, forced into cattle cars, and shipped into the desert, then left to die. And here's the kicker. This isn't some forgotten legend or made-up story. This really happened. It's part of the American history that most people have never even heard of. But today, we're diving deep into the dark, twisted story of the Bisbee Deportation. A story of greed, corruption, and the lengths people will go to protect their power. Trust me, by the end of this, you'll be asking yourself, how did I not know this before? We're off the beaten path. To understand what happened in Bisbee, we need to go back to the beginning. It's the late 1800s, and the American West is booming. Gold, silver, and copper are the lifeblood of the economy, and prospectors are flocking to places like Arizona hoping to strike it rich. Nestled in the Mule Mountains, Bisbee is sitting on one of the richest copper deposits in the world. And by the early 1900s, it was a full-blown copper empire. At the heart of it all was the Copper Queen Mine, owned by the Phelps Dodge Corporation. This wasn't just a mine, it was a money-making machine. By 1917, Bisbee was producing millions of pounds of copper every year, and Phelps Dodge was one of the most powerful companies in the country. Here's the thing, all that wealth, it wasn't going to the miners. It was going to the bosses, the investors, and the guys sitting in boardrooms thousands of miles away. Now, timing is everything. This is 1917, and the world is at war. Copper wasn't just valuable, it was essential. It was used for bullets, shells, wires, you name it. In Bisbee, one of the biggest suppliers. That meant the pressure to keep the mines running was insane. Any disruption, any strike, any slowdown, that was seen as unpatriotic, even treasonous. And that's where things start to get messy. Bisbee was a diverse community with residents of Mexican, Siberian, Croatian, Italian, and countless other backgrounds. These were men who'd come to America chasing the dream for a better life, but unfortunately what they found was backbreaking work, 10 to 12-hour shifts, and wages that barely covered the cost of living. The mines were dangerous too, with cave-ins, explosions, and toxic fumes. It was a daily gamble with their lives. And if you got hurt, too bad. There's no workers' comp, no safety net. You were on your own. This is where the cracks start to show. The miners, they were fed up. They wanted better pay, safer conditions, and an end to the discrimination they faced as immigrants. But Phelps Dodge, they weren't interested in sharing the wealth. To them, the miners were replaceable. And if anyone dared to complain, well, let's just say they had ways of dealing with it. The miners, they weren't going to back down. And that's when the trouble really began. July 12, 1917. It started like any other day in Bisbee. The sun rose over the Mule Mountains, and the town began to stir. But by mid-morning, everything changed. Over 2,000 armed men, deputized by the sheriff, Harry Wheeler, fanned out across the town. Their mission? To round up every striker, every supporter, every man who dared to stand up to the mining companies. So you're a miner, you've just finished your breakfast, maybe kissed your wife and kids goodbye, and then you hear shouting, banging on doors, and the sound of boots in the streets. Before you know it, armed men are busting into your home, dragging you outside. No explanation, no warrant, just force. This wasn't an arrest, it was a hunt, and by the end of the day, Over 1,200 men, miners, their supporters, even bystanders, were rounded up like cattle. The men were marched down to Warren Ballpark, a place that usually filled with sounds of cheering and laughter, but not that day. That day it was a prison. The men were forced to stand in blazing Arizona sun, surrounded by armed guards with machine guns. No water, no food, no answers. Just the growing realization that something terrible was about to happen. Then came the cattle cars. These weren't passenger trains. These were meant for livestock, cramped, filthy, sweltering in the summer heat. Around noon, the men were forced inside at gunpoint, packed so tightly they could barely move. And then the doors were sealed. No one knew where they were going. No one knew if they'd ever see their families again. All they knew was this: they were being banished from Bisbee.
If you're enjoying this video, do us a favor. Hit that like and subscribe button. It would mean a whole lot to us and helps us grow the channel.
The train rumbled out of Bisbee, carrying its human cargo 200 miles across the desert to Hermanas, New Mexico. For hours, the men baked in the heat, with no water, no food, and no idea what awaited them. When the train finally stopped, they were dumped in the middle of nowhere, stranded in the desert, with nothing but the clothes on their backs. It was a death sentence, plain and simple. The deportation was over, but the suffering wasn't. For the men left stranded in Hermanas, New Mexico, the nightmare was just beginning. With no food, no water, no shelter, they were at the mercy of the desert. Some were rescued by the U.S. Army, others managed to find their way to nearby towns. But for many, the trauma of the day would stay with them for the rest of their lives. You'd think an event this shocking would lead to consequences, right? Wrong. Despite the federal investigation, no one was ever held accountable. Not Sheriff Harry Wheeler, not the vigilantes, not the mining companies. They claimed the deportation was necessary to protect the town and the war effort. And the government? They looked the other way. It was a betrayal of justice, plain and simple. Back in Bisbee, the town was forever changed. The mines were running again, but the spirit of the community was broken. Families were torn apart, neighbors turned on each other, and anyone who dared to speak out, well, they knew what would happen to them. Bisbee had become a town of silence, ruled by fear and controlled by the mining companies. The Bisbee deportation wasn't just local tragedy. It was part of a larger pattern of violence and suppression against labor movements in the U.S. And for workers across the country, it was a stark reminder of the power they were up against. But it was also a rallying cry, a reminder that the fight for justice was far from over.
The Bisbee deportation might feel like a story from the distant past, but its echoes are still with us today. We want to hear from you. What lessons did you take from this story, and how do you think we can make sure something like this never happens again? Let us know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Hit that like and subscribe button and join us for more untold stories from history. The more we know about the past, the better we can shape the future. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video, Off the Beaten Path.